Welcome. You are watching a VS Code live event. I am your host, Brian Clark. And for this event, we're talking about the April 2021 release for the VS Code release party, version 1.56. Hope you're all doing well. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Or if you're watching this later, thank you for tuning in. So if you're new to this and you're not familiar with this particular event, the launch parties, it's about a 30-minute session where we have folks from the VS Code team show you some of the cool features that are coming out or are in this release of VS Code for you to check out and try out for your work. They last about 30 minutes and some reminders. So really quick, I want to get through this stuff so you can get right into the demos and the fun stuff from the VS Code team. But really quick, be sure to follow us on the YouTube account at code, youtube.com/code. These are all recorded, so you can watch these later. If you can't catch all of it or you missed it live, go back to the YouTube account. VS Code there will have it for you. In addition, we have been on TikTok. Hey, TikTok for quick tips, humor, and a look behind the product, behind VS Code from folks that are working day in and day out on your favorite editor. So check that out. It's at VS Code on TikTok there. There's also the meetup group for these live events. So while we have this release party for today, we also have been doing other live events. Like we've done a deep dive into notebooks. We've also learned about .NET interactive notebooks. Notebooks has been a hot theme lately. If you caught that, those are also recorded in case you want to catch those as well. So the meetup group, though, will tell you about all the upcoming events for VS Code that we're doing live and recorded, so that you can sign up and add the event to your calendar if you'd like. Also, Build is coming out. Microsoft Build, big conference, fun stuff happens, lots of cool announcements, things that you learn about the different services and products from Microsoft. In particular, there's going to be some VS Code sessions there, so be sure to check that out, sign up for the event, and be able to tune in for the VS Code sessions that we have going on there. The link right here, mybuild.microsoft.com. So without further ado, our first demo for us today is going to be by Daniel Ims. He's going to be showing us the terminal tabs preview. Hey, Daniel, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to what you're going to show us. Take it away.
All right. So yeah, I'm showing off terminal tabs. Disable it. So this is the current state. When you create terminals, you'll have a drop down here. Not particularly convenient, and you can't see the status of the terminals. So terminal tabs, this is a preview feature that you can enable in stable now, and they show up to the right of the terminal. So you enable it with a setting. I'll just go through some of the features now. So when you close all but one, we actually inline it to save some room. Stick to that lightweight feel of VS Code. If I split a terminal, it shows up with this little indicator to symbolize that those are linked. If I create some tasks, don't know why that showed up. Yeah, so tasks have this little task annotation here. And this will also show up for if you create a local terminal on remote workspaces to make it more obvious that it is a local terminal to differentiate it. So another feature, I just enabled the bell feature. And when I trigger the bell, it shows up there briefly. So this is a new concept that we're adding to the terminal. It's called terminal statuses, at least internally. So that allows us to explain things about the particular terminals. So the current statuses that we have are the bell, if you enable that. There's a feature that allows extensions to contribute to terminal environments. And if we want to relaunch a terminal, it'll show up there as well. And if a terminal gets disconnected for some reason, we'll show that. So some other things, there's now a context menu. We also let you change the icon. There's this neat little search here. There. And yeah, we've always had rename, but now it's a little more clear. Okay, another feature. So you can size this quite large and very small. When it goes small, it switches to only showing the icon and the split indicator. And you'll notice that the inline tab shows up there as well, so you can see the title. And the only other feature I have is double click. So some views support double clicking to like reset the view. And for the terminal, it'll toggle between like the ideal view where all the text is visible and the narrow view. So just a little convenience. And here are some of the configuration options that you have with the terminal. So if you want to show the title all the time, you can do that. If you want it on the left instead of the right, you can do that. And if you want to show the tabs all the time instead of like it goes away when you just have one, you can do that as well. Yeah, that's terminal tabs. Back to you, Brian.
Excellent. That was really, it's cool to see the progress that the terminal has made over time and the evolution of it. So props to you and the team for all the work that you've been doing on there. So one question I had was you showed how to change the icon of it. Will that be the default icon, or is it just for while that terminal is alive, basically?
Good question. So I didn't go too much into icons, but you can see here 2 icons are showing up. We actually have several different icons. I think, yeah, so Tmux has the Tmux logo, for example, and this is the Bash logo. When you change an icon, it will only last for that session, but since we now reconnect to terminals when you reload the window, for example, if you install an extension, that'll stick around with the icon. Yeah.
Awesome. Today I learned, I didn't know this, by the way, that you can double click on some of the resize bars like you were just showing. I didn't know that was even a possibility. So thank you for showing me that. Yeah, and then is the bell off by default?
Yes, it's disabled by default.
Okay, good. Because with me, I mess up all my commands and it's just constantly ding, ding, ding. And I just need that. Yeah. Okay, cool. So the other question I have for you you mentioned a little bit about tasks. So does that mean like if I have something like a TypeScript build and watch running, that will also be supported through all this?
Yeah, so I think that's actually landing like today in the main branch. So when you run a task, it'll show a little play icon right there, but we're trying to make it a spinner. And if it fails, you'll see an error icon, and if it succeeds, you'll see a check.
Awesome. And one last question for you. So how did you all come to designing this new layout and this feature? What was the design process like, and the considerations that came into play as you were thinking about building it out?
Yeah, that's a bit of a big question.
Okay.
So right after initially developing the terminal, I actually implemented tabs, but they looked a lot like this. And when we actually saw that in the product, no one really liked it because we have this tabs inside tabs concept, whereas this is structured more like a list. So that was a big part of the feedback. But over sort of the years since, we've been gathering feedback, and then we drilled and spoke with the community and the team in the issue, and this is where we landed. Yeah.
Nice. I think it looks great. Nice and sleek.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for your time, Daniel. Thank you for showing this. And next up, folks. Oh, thank you, Daniel. Yeah. Next up, folks, we have Eric Amodio, who's going to show us a little bit about something called RemoteHub. Hey, Eric.
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm going to show remote repositories, also called RemoteHub. And basically the idea here is that you can open up any repository from GitHub and not have anything local on your machine, and you can just open it directly. So if I go to open the VS Code repository here, I started in an empty window, and now I've loaded the VS Code repository from GitHub. There's nothing local on my machine. This is all sort of virtually done. This is sort of big, part of a bigger feature inside VS Code called virtual workspaces. So it's this idea of not having to have things local and to be able to virtually connect to them. And so we're working on building that out. But the experience here, you can see in the sort of remote indicator that it says GitHub, to say where you're coming from, where this repository actually lives. And under this menu now, there's a continue working on. In this environment, there are some limited features like the terminal. won't work here. Like any terminals will be on, against your local machine, and run and debug again. They won't work in this mode. But you'll get source control. The timeline view will work. You can dive through commits, and then you can just open up any file. So just like on the desktop, you get your fuzzy search, quick open, enter file. If I make some changes here, they'll show up in the source control view. We can stage the change just like just like on the desktop, just like on a local repository, and commit that. So let me actually here, I will go ahead and click here. We can create a new branch. So I'll just create a new branch. So switch to this new branch. So now we're going to switch to this new branch. One thing I will want to mention that these, so each of these remotes repositories, you basically get, unlike on the desktop where if you switch branches, you're sort of like switching your workspace and your working folder. In these, they're individual. So every branch you're on is sort of like a unique environment. So basically, like you opened up a whole new workspace to that branch. So your changes and the things that you work on are part of that branch. So if you switch from one branch to another, your changes won't come with you. They'll still be there on the branch that you came from. But you can work on multiple things at the same time, on different branches. And we'll be expanding the feature set around be able to see those changes from other branches and bring them across and that kind of thing. So here, let's just say, I just want to just add something. These can't type today. And also we have just like on the on a normal, you got your previews, a lot of language, certain language intelligence. For TypeScript and JavaScript, you get single file, so it's not across the whole workspace. You get single file, like go to definition and find references and that sort of thing. So you get sort of limited set of language intelligence. But then in here, so if I want to go and commit this, and then commit that change, and now this change will be committed and pushed. So one of the differences between having this local is there's no push step. Like once you commit it, you're actually committing the changes directly to GitHub, and so you can see those changes, just like on the desktop. Like if you're, if you want to pull down changes, there's sync button. If you don't have any changes locally, like if I haven't made any changes, every time you open up this workspace, it'll sort of automatically sync you to whatever the tip of that branch is. So you don't have to like constantly keep pulling. So you will only need to really pull those changes if you're actively working on things. And yeah, so that's that. We also can then continue working on this from some other place. So if you want to now clone this repository locally, clone this repository in a container, open it in code spaces, basically being able to take this repo and do that. So if we want to clone this locally here, we can say projects and just clone that into here. And now this will clone it down, actually clone the repository down to my machine. And while that's actually doing that, I will also note that we have search. So if I search for a timeline, you'll see here, I'm not on the default branch. So we're falling back because GitHub only supports searching on the main branch. So showing the indexes there, showing the results from that branch. But we can, we can't provide. GitHub doesn't provide, sort of rich full text search, but we have a feature where you could enable indexing, and then you will basically, download a index for or create an index for the repository, As soon as that gets downloaded, then we can search again, and now we'll get full text search. You notice the number of files went up, and so now we get full rich text search with regex, full word, case, all that sort of thing. So yeah, and then so here, and then we finish the clone, and we can open that. And I think that's largely it. Again, I will mention that this right now is in the insiders version. You can see the green logo up here. So definitely try the insider version of VS Code. It's RemoteHub is built in, so you'll just be able to either from the indicator see open repository, or open repository from the command palette. And yeah, check it out. We're definitely building this. We're still building it. We're hoping to get as much feedback and see how people like it. Definitely really excited about it.
I like it. I like it a lot. So one of the first great demo, Eric. Thank you for that. And one of the first questions off the top of mind that I think lots of folks are going to have is the one that you probably hear a lot with anything new that's coming in VS Code. When is it going to go into the stable build of VS Code?
Right. Yeah. So our plan right now, barring feedback or other things, the plan right now is to actually get this for this current iteration that we've just started. So it should be basically in the next version of VS Code.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. That sounds good. Another question I have for you is, so am I understanding this correctly? Did you mention? I think I might have heard you correctly. We cannot necessarily run and debug it when it's this way. It's just about editing files and being able to quickly, like, maybe fine tune a README or maybe beyond that. What's the limitations there? Could you just rehash that?
Yeah. So the terminals, there's no terminal against the remote repository. There's no run and debug at this point, and there's like I said, there's limited language intelligence, and also I will mention that there's a lot of extensions may not work in these virtual virtual workspaces at this point, because they may have specific things where they're looking for files on disk or other things there. So you will find, as we're getting through, that there's a set of extensions that won't work. They'll be disabled by VS Code until extension authors start adopting some saying that they support virtual workspaces, and then they can work in that mode. And so we actually do have a guide that's for extension authors to see what changes that need to be done to support remote workspaces, and then they can work in that mode as well.
Gotcha.
So if you're an extension author, definitely check that out.
And where can they go? Code.visualstudio.com, the doc's there?
Yeah, I have to pull up the link. There's an issue for it on our GitHub repo. Maybe we can put that in the show notes or something.
Okay, cool. All right, so the next question that comes to mind with these virtual workspace, like how secure is that? Because I'm thinking, if you're working on a branch and maybe there's stuff that you don't want public just yet, usually when you're working locally, you can make those changes. No one's seeing them. It's only on your machine. So is there, what's the security, I guess, of using these workspaces and
so there's two things, right? There's a security and privacy. So for the security side, it's all just talking to the remotes through APIs. So there's really nothing local to your machine, with the exception of if you build a search index that is downloading that locally, but we're not running any code from that. So there's nothing being run against that. It's just we're searching, doing text search through that code. So from the security aspect, it's completely sandboxed. From the privacy aspect, there really isn't anything private in it. As you're working on it, it's all private to what you're working on. But as soon as you commit, right, you're publishing that to a public branch on GitHub. If you're working on a private repository, then it stays private, and it's just like any other private repository. But you're immediately committing to GitHub. So if the repo is private, the branch will be there. If you create a branch, that branch is immediately going to be there on GitHub. So everything you're doing is immediately visible on GitHub based on the same privacy that you have set up on GitHub.
Got it. Okay, cool. That's good to know. And then last question for you. I noticed the demo you're using GitHub. Are there other repository services like Azure repos that are possible to use with this?
Yeah, I mean, so right now, obviously, showed and we have GitHub built in. Azure repository support will be coming soon, and our hope is that we'll actually have AI that others can actually put in and be able to expand this as well.
Nice. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Eric. This is
Thanks.
great. All right, folks. Next up, we have Jimbo Wang talking to us about inline values with Java, with the Java debugger. Hey, Jimbo.
Yeah. Hi, Brian. Yeah. Let's start by sharing my screen. I'm excited to introduce some Java debugger feature in this VS Code release party. So the first Java debugger feature I want to demo is inline values. I have run my Java application with Java debugger, and I'm going to run a feature in my service. So there's a breakpoint stopped in my application, and from the stack trace, you can see the variables in current stack trace is being displayed inside the editor, just right next their hold location. When I'm continue run my application, the inline values are updated as well. So this is handy when debugging problems because the code and its value are displayed side by side in the same place. This is a simple case for inline values. I'm going to show a more complex case of variables, which requires Java language context to resolve the variable values. Here is my second example. It defines a variable x in different scopes. A member x in first level class, a member x in second level class, and a local variable in a method. And in the body of test method, each line of code uses the variable x, but each variable x actually represents something different. For example, in line 11, this variable x is the member x in second level class. In line 13, this x is a new variable x. And in line 19, this variable x is the member x in first level class. So a direct lookup in the variable table with the name x does not give the correct value. To improve this case, the Java debugger uses the semantic information to pass the source of the underlying variables and then get their value directly from the JVM. This way, the debugger can display the exact inline values. And this new inline value feature is built on top of a new VS Code debug API, which now allows the language extension to provide the inline values. And if you find this feature is not enabled in your environment, you can open user setting and search with the key inline values. Make sure it's set to auto or true to enable this feature. Let's go back to my first example. If you want to show variable values with different data views, you can right-click on the variable view. The context menu will show some data view options for you. For example, I can switch between text and decimal for numbers. And for example, I can switch between logical struct view and raw object view for Java collections. You will see both the variable view and the inline values will be refreshed with the new data formatter. Finally, to ramp up my demo, I have shown how inline value feature works and how to show variable values with different data views. Thank you. Hi, Brad.
Excellent, Jimbo. This is really, really powerful stuff because I mean, just thinking about as developers, we spend a significant amount of time digging through our code, trying to find issues. And lots of times the default is to kind of log it out, right? Log out the values of things, but being able to see them while debugging it in VS Code to see the values of variables and as you step through, I'm blown away by that. So question for you. So this wasn't default at first, right? With Java when you're writing Java programs in VS Code, is that correct?
If you use the latest VS 156, so there is a setting that is auto. That means this feature will be enabled by default. But if you use an old VS Code, maybe that's not enabled by default.
Gotcha. And so what was some of the driver behind turning this into a full-blown feature for folks? What helped make it to become the automatic default now?
Yeah, actually, VS Code provide a generic inline values feature in a long time ago, but at that time, it just uses the token name to match the variables from the variable view.
Mm-hmm.
But for Java language, there is some special case that cannot handled well by the generic implementation. So in the native VS Code, they provide an API to allow the Java language extension to implement the inline values by ourselves. So we just leverage this API to improve this feature to have a more complex Java scenario.
Excellent, excellent. Do you possibly know if this is possible in other? So with that in mind, right? Is this possible with other programming languages that folks might use within VS Code?
So far as I know, looks like we are the first one to adopt the new debug API. Yeah.
Excellent. I know I put you on the spot a little bit with that one, but yeah, no, that's good to hear. I'm looking forward to seeing more support for that through other languages that are folks are using with VS Code. Excellent. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much, Jimbo. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, folks. That does it for this VS Code release party for April 2021 version 1.56. I want to do a special thank you again to our presenters, Daniel, Eric, and Jimbo, and some folks behind the scenes like Sinan, Alessandro, that help make this possible. Quick reminders again that we did at the beginning, just in case you forgot or you skipped ahead from before. Make sure to check out these recordings if you missed part of this or you want to go back and reference something and show some teammates about some cool features in VS Code. You can do so by going to the YouTube account for VS Code, youtube.com/code. In addition to that, we are on TikTok. We're sharing tips and tricks and humor and a look behind the product over on TikTok, tiktok.com/@VSCode there. And last but not least, meetup group for these events. Check those out, sign up, subscribe to it. That way you can add calendar events. You won't forget these live events. You could tune in live, ask your questions live of the VS Code team as they're presenting these things like this. And last but not least, Build is coming up again. It's an exciting time, a really fun event, lots of cool stuff happening. Be sure to sign up for that as well if you're interested. There's going to be some VS Code sessions and you'll see some cool new stuff coming out there as well. With that, I hope you have a good rest of your day wherever you are in the world. Happy coding.